I am hot. I am hot. 41. 41. Am I going to crash? Yes. Yes. I am hot. I will re-enter.
In 1961, two brothers in a listening station outside Turin pulled a voice like that out of the static. A woman, they said, in orbit, burning. What you just heard is a recreation of what they logged, because the Soviet Union said that woman never existed. No launch. No cosmonaut. No voice. Here is the problem. The Soviet Union said the same thing about men who provably did exist. A man who burned alive in a training chamber, hidden for 25 years. A man cut out of official photographs so cleanly that for decades, historians did not know he had ever been there. This is the story of 6 erasures. 6 times the Soviet space program made men disappear. Number 4 is the one they could not hide. By the end, you will know what is proven, what was buried, and what is still sitting on 9 recordings from Italy, argued over for 60 years. Erasure number 1. The day the steppe burned. October 1960. The Cold War is a scoreboard, and the Soviet Union is winning it. Sputnik. Laika. The far side of the moon. Every first belongs to Moscow. Behind the propaganda, the pressure is crushing. Premier Khrushchev wants a new intercontinental missile, the R-16, ready for the anniversary of the revolution. The deadline is impossible. On October 24th, the R-16 stands fueled on the pad at Baikonur, loaded with hypergolic propellants so vicious the engineers call them devil's venom. The missile is leaking. Safe procedure says drain it and start over, a delay of weeks. Marshal Mitrofan Nedelin, commander of the Strategic Rocket Forces, refuses. He orders the fault fixed on the pad, on a live, fueled missile. And to prove how safe he thinks it is, he has a chair carried out and sits down beside it. Around him, dozens of engineers and soldiers are working on the rocket like mechanics under a car. Nobody wants to look slower than the Marshal is patient. At 6:45 in the evening, a botched reset of the missile's flight programmer fires the second stage engine. Straight down, into the fully fueled first stage below it. The fireball swallows the pad in seconds. Men in fuel-soaked overalls simply cease to exist. Others run burning across the concrete until the wire perimeter fence stops them. Automatic cameras, set up to film a triumph, film all of it. The footage is seized and classified the same night. Marshal Nedelin, in his chair, is identified afterward by a medal that survived the fire. The official death toll, admitted decades later, is 78. Other counts go past 120. And then comes the part that defines everything you will see in this video. The Soviet Union does not announce a disaster. It announces a plane crash. Soviet newspapers report that Marshal Nedelin has died in an aviation accident. 1 man. 1 obituary. The other victims are buried quietly, some in a mass grave at Baikonur. Families are told their sons died in accidents that never happened. The largest launch pad disaster in history officially does not exist until 1989. 29 years of silence. Remember that reflex. When something dies at Baikonur, the truth dies with it. Because 5 months later, the machine that erased 100 men gets a much smaller job. Erasure number 2. The fire nobody was told about. March 1961. 20 young pilots are training in secret outside Moscow for something no human has ever done. One of them will be first in space. The world knows none of their names. The youngest is Valentin Bondarenko. 24 years old, a fighter pilot, by every account the kindest man in the group. They call him Zvonachek, Little Bell. On March 23rd, he is finishing day 10 of a 15-day isolation test, sealed in a low-pressure chamber where much of the air has been replaced with oxygen. At the end of a medical session, he peels the sensors off his skin and wipes the adhesive away with a piece of cotton soaked in alcohol. Then he tosses it aside. It lands on the coil of an electric hot plate. In oxygen that rich, there is no such thing as a small flame. The chamber ignites around him. The chamber is pressurized. The door cannot simply be pulled open. It takes agonizing minutes to equalize and unseal it while he burns inside in a wool training suit on camera. When they finally reach him, Bondarenko is still conscious, still on his feet. He keeps whispering the same thing to the doctors. It's my fault. It's my fault. He dies hours later with burns over almost his entire body. 20 days before the flight that will make one of his friends the most famous man alive. And then nothing. No announcement. No obituary. His file is sealed. His face is removed from group photographs, and his death is filed away as if it had never happened. The first man to die in the space race officially does not exist. Not for a year. Not for a decade. For 25 years. Here is what that secret cost. 6 years later, NASA seals 3 astronauts into a capsule full of pure oxygen for a routine test. Apollo 1. A spark. A fire. 3 men dead before anyone could open the hatch. Some historians believe that if Bondarenko's death had been public, American engineers might have treated pure oxygen differently. The cover-up did not just erase a man. It may have helped kill 3 more. Erasure number 3. The man scratched out of the picture. Look at this photograph. The first cosmonaut group with Sergei Korolev, the chief designer himself. Gagarin sits at the center of history. Everyone in this frame is about to become immortal. Almost everyone, because the official versions of photos like this were retouched. Faces painted over with bushes, with staircases, with sky. And one face was removed more often than any other. Grigory Nelyubov, fighter pilot, brilliant, fast, and arrogant, with test scores among the best in the entire group. This is him training for a flight he would never get. In April 1961, when Gagarin is strapped into Vostok 1, the state has prepared for every outcome. There are 3 pre-recorded announcements of the first man in space. Gagarin flies. Titov is backup number 1. And backup number 2, the third name on that shortlist of all mankind, is Grigory Nelyubov. He stands meters from the launch pad as his friend rides fire into the sky. Then he waits for his own turn. And waits. The flights go to other men. In March 1963, a drunken argument with a military patrol at a train station changes everything. The patrol demands an apology. Nelyubov, proud to the bone, refuses. For that, he is expelled from the Cosmonaut Corps and posted to a fighter regiment at the far eastern edge of the country, as far from Moscow as the Soviet Union goes. But exile is not enough. The retouchers go to work. In the official record, in the published photographs, in the history of the space program, Nelyubov simply stops having existed. Imagine what happens next. A man at a remote airbase tells his fellow pilots the truth. I was Gagarin's second backup. I nearly opened the space age. And nobody believes him. Why would they? He is not in any photograph. He is not in any book. The state has made his greatest achievement look like a drunk man's fantasy. On February 18th, 1966, Grigory Nelyubov is struck and killed by a train on a snowbound bridge in the Far East. The military investigation notes he had spoken of taking his own life. He was 31. His name did not appear in print again for 20 years. The man third in line to open the space age was, for 2 decades, no one at all. An accident erased. A death erased. A living man erased. The machine works perfectly. And then, in 1967, it meets a disaster too public to disappear. Erasure number 4, the one they could not hide. This is the payoff of everything you have watched so far. Because in April 1967, the Soviet cover-up machine finally collides with a catastrophe in full view of the world. The 50th anniversary of the revolution is coming, and the leadership wants a triumph. 2 ships docking in orbit, cosmonauts crossing between them. A spectacle. The ship for the job is the brand new Soyuz. There is one problem. It is not ready. Its unmanned test flights have failed, one after another. The man assigned to fly it is Vladimir Komarov, veteran cosmonaut, superb engineer, and one of the most respected men in the program. He knows exactly what the Soyuz is. By some accounts, he told friends the flight would probably kill him. Asked why he did not refuse, he reportedly gave one reason. His backup would fly instead. His backup was Yuri Gagarin. Treat that story with care. It comes from disputed sources, and historians argue about it to this day. What is not disputed is what the ship did to him. April 23rd. Soyuz 1 launches with Komarov alone aboard. Within hours, the ship is crippled. One solar panel never opens. Power is failing. The ship will not hold its orientation. For a full day, Komarov flies a dying spacecraft by hand, spinning between Earth and Sun, working every backup procedure in the book while the ground scrambles beneath him. The docking mission is abandoned. Now there is only one goal. Get him home. Re-entry burn. Atmosphere. Parachute. 3 steps between Komarov and the rest of his life. He survives the burn. He survives the plunge. And then the main parachute jams in its container, deformed, engineers later conclude, by faults nobody had time to find. Komarov fires the reserve. It tangles instantly in the drogue of the failed main chute, and the capsule falls the last kilometers with nothing above it but knotted fabric. Soyuz 1 hits the steppe near Orsk at roughly 140 kilometers per hour and bursts into flame. Vladimir Komarov becomes the first human being to die on a spaceflight. Now watch the pattern break. 100 dead soldiers can be a plane crash. A burned trainee can be a sealed file. But the whole world watched Soyuz 1 launch. So for the first time in this story, the Soviet Union announces the death of a cosmonaut hours after it happens. State funeral. Ashes in the Kremlin wall. National mourning. They could not erase the man, so they erased the reasons. The design flaws, the ignored warnings, the political deadline that put an unready ship on the pad. All of it stayed secret for decades. That is what erasure number 4 teaches. When hiding the body becomes impossible, you hide the cause. Remember that, because it happens again in 4 years, to 3 men at once. Erasure number 5. 3 men who never woke up. June 1971. The Soviet Union has lost the moon, so it plants its flag in a different frontier. Salyut 1. The first space station in human history. Aboard it, Georgy Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov and Viktor Patsayev live for 23 days, a world record. They give television tours. They are heroes broadcast into every Soviet home. There is one detail that will matter. The Soyuz ferry is so cramped that the crew does not wear pressure suits. 3 men in shirt sleeves in a machine full of valves. On June 29th, they undock and head home. Retrofire is clean. Re-entry is clean. The parachute opens. The capsule settles onto the Kazakh steppe like a textbook landing. The recovery crews run to the capsule, open the hatch, and find all 3 men in their couches, calm, composed, and dead. When the modules separated above the atmosphere, a pressure equalization valve was jolted open 168 kilometers up. Their air hissed out into vacuum in less than a minute. Dobrovolsky, Volkov, and Patsayev remain, to this day, the only human beings who have ever died in space itself. Above the line, in the black. Once again, the deaths cannot be hidden. The world had watched these men on television for 3 weeks. So once again, the state hides what it can. The cause. The valve, the vacuum, the shirt sleeves, the redesign that followed. Sealed. NASA, about to fly its own long-duration cruise, has to plead for details and waits years for the full story. Since that day, no Soviet or Russian crew has ever flown re-entry without a sealed pressure suit. The lesson was written in 3 lives and then locked in a drawer. 5 erasures, all of them provably real. Which brings us, finally, back to the voice you heard at the beginning of this video. Erasure number 6 is the one that may never have happened at all. Erasure number 6. The voices on the tapes. Turin, Italy. The late 1950s. 2 brothers, Achille and Giovanni Judica-Cordiglia, build a listening station they call Torre Bert out of war surplus radio gear. They are amateurs, but they are not amateurs at listening. They pull down Sputnik's beep. They record American satellites. When Gagarin flies, they capture transmissions from that too. Which is exactly why what happens next is so hard to wave away. Because scattered among the real signals, the brothers begin logging things that match no announced mission. November 1960. They report what sounds like a distress code, tapped out from something moving overhead. A ship in trouble, where no ship is supposed to be. February 1961. They record what they describe as the sound of a human being suffocating in orbit. A heartbeat and failing breath drifting across the sky. No mission is announced that day. And in May 1961, the recording that made Torre Bert famous. A woman's voice in Russian growing more desperate by the second.
I am hot. I am hot. Am I going to crash? Yes. Yes. I am hot. I will re-enter. I will re-enter.
If that recording is what it claims to be, a woman died in the sky 2 years before Valentina Tereshkova officially became the first woman in space. And history is a lie. So, is it real? Here is the honest answer, and you deserve to hear it straight, because this video has shown you exactly why people believed it. The case against the tapes is strong. The voices break Soviet radio procedure. The orbital physics does not line up. Language experts hear mistakes no native Russian speaker would make. Decades of declassified Soviet records, opened after 1991, contain no dead cosmonauts before Komarov, no missing Vostoks, no erased orbital flights. Most historians consider the tapes a myth. But the myth refused to die, for one very good reason. Every time someone said the Soviet Union would never hide a dead spaceman, the Soviet Union was, at that exact moment, hiding dead spacemen. 100 men at Baikonur, a plane crash that never happened, Bondarenko's sealed file, Nelyubov's scratched out face, the truth about Soyuz 1 and Soyuz 11 locked away for a generation. The lost cosmonauts are almost certainly not real. But the Soviet Union built the exact machine that would have hidden them if they were. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is this video. In the late 1980s, glasnost cracked the archives open and the erased men came back one by one. Bondarenko got his obituary 25 years late. Nelyubov came back into the photographs and the history books. A crater on the far side of the moon now quietly carries Komarov's name. Elsewhere on that same hidden hemisphere, 3 craters carry the names of the Apollo 1 crew. The men who fixed the R-16 on that launch pad have a memorial at Baikonur. 3 years later, to the day, a second fire in a missile silo killed again. Since then, October 24th is Baikonur's Black Day. Nothing launches. And in Italy, the 9 recordings still exist. Whatever they captured, a hoax, a mistake, or a voice, they remain the space race's strangest loose end. Here is the thought to leave with. Every space program is built on names we celebrate. This one was also built on names that had to be recovered, one by one, from deliberate silence. Gagarin's smile was real. The triumph was real. But behind the most famous photograph of the 20th century stood men whose faces were sanded away so the picture would stay clean. History is not just what happened. It is what survived the retouching. And sometimes the most important men in the picture are the ones who are no longer in it. If this story gripped you, the next one is already waiting. Every way space has actually killed a human. The full story is on screen now. And subscribe to Mindwired so the next erased story finds you. If any of this messed with your head a little, well, that's exactly the point. And it only happens because people like you keep showing up. And
hit subscribe right now for it. It costs you nothing, and it's the entire reason Mindwired keeps making videos like this. Subscribe.